waterfalls. No, no, no. Keep the faith, you'll have it all. Slow, slow, slow. Listen to the rivers and the streams that you're used to.
Welcome to episode 26 of My Views Extended. I'm your host, Nadia, and thank you so much for joining me this week. If you are a new listener, thank you so much for checking me out. And if you are a return listener, thank you so much for tuning in once again. Aside from this podcast, you can learn more about me on my blog, nadiadanella.com, where I post on Mondays, Wordless Monday, which I just share my photo adventures, I guess you would call it, and just my learning. And, photography, like anything else, is a lifelong learning skill. So just sharing what I've learned and my jaunts about the BC area or wherever I plan to be in the world. And yeah, just share through whether it's a series or just really what I feel are really amazing pictures or pictures that mean something to me or showcase what I am feeling at that time. Wednesdays on nadiadanella.com is How's It Going Wednesday, where I just share basically what's going on in my world, whether it's related to work or something new that I'm trying or wanting to do, probably mainly work or if there's any kind of special events in the city that I am attending. And Fridays is where I focus on various recipes, reviews, and DIYs. You can also keep up with me on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter. And of course, as always, I will leave links to all social media sites in the show notes. In shortages news this week, gas and petrol shortages in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in Canada. I didn't think that this was ever going to be a problem here, but here we are. I guess you expect it in second and third world countries, but you don't expect it in, first world Western countries. But Petro-Canada stations, Petro-Canada, which is a subdivision of Suncor in Winnipeg, they are running out of gasoline. I mean, completely out of gas. Signs are up, out of gas. Gas stations are temporarily closed. The gas shortage is affecting not only Winnipeg, but parts of Alberta, Saskatchewan, BC, and Ontario. Some causes of the shortages are, of course, the fires in Fort McMurray, Alberta, and a unplanned outage at an Edmonton refinery. I don't know much about the gas industry, so I guess I'm just going to have to take their word on that. Do you store gasoline for instances like this, or just in case it's late and you live in a small town and gas stations close early? Do you drive less to conserve what you have in times of gas shortages, or do you just fill up and drive as usual, hoping that the shortage will end soon? I personally don't drive and I don't have a car, so I don't know. I'm okay with that. I'm self-reliant without a car. I mean, of course a car would be lovely. It's going to happen someday, but I'm okay with my feet, my bike, and with public transport. So yeah, what do you do when it comes to gas shortages? Have you ever lived through a gas shortage before? How long did it go on for? Yeah, did you just have to hoof it in times of gas shortages? In environmental news, this past Sunday, 16 temperature records were broken across BC, Canada. And this shouldn't be news because the weather has been pretty haphazard and out of sorts for the last, I would say, 20-ish years, give or take a little bit. And that's definitely been all over the globe. I mean, even in countries where it's hot, where the majority of the country is hot, like parts of India, where a regular day is 40 degrees Celsius, that's normal. Even there, they're getting temperatures of 50 plus Celsius, I believe. I think if I remember it going that high. In other parts of the world where it's hot, but it's getting even hot for them, where they're literally dropping. They're having, drought, and even people who are born in those hot climates can't take it. So that's definitely a global phenomenon. It's interesting, it's this weather is so crazy. It's raining where it hardly rains. There's drought where drought was once a rarity, where certain countries and cities, especially in Vancouver, in the BC area, I should say, are known for the greenery and lushness and beautiful green forests and just lushness all around, and we are getting major droughts. Since I moved here last year, that was a drought last year, it's looking like another drought this year. Yeah, droughts were once a rarity. You know, fires are spreading and they're out of control in more places. They're spreading, they're lasting for longer because there's no rain. You have places where snow is falling in spring, and not just a little sprinkle, like, you know, 1 or 2 feet of snow. Heat waves, you know, at times of year when the leaves have already dropped, you know, for the season, and you're still being able to wear shorts and barbecue. Mother Nature is a mess, and these heat waves and droughts are definitely a testament to that. A few of the places that had record temperatures, broken record, were Lytton, excuse me if I mispronounce that, I'm new to this province, and they had a high of 38.5 degrees Celsius. Kamloops had a high of 36 degrees Celsius, and Princeton had a high of 35.8 degrees Celsius. That's just to name a few. And in the Vancouver area where I live, we had a temperature of 31 degrees Celsius, which is that's not a record-breaking temperature, but it's hot enough. And I thought I left these 31 degree spring and summers behind in Ontario, but apparently they have followed me here. Yay. No, it's not yay. Yuck. So anyway, no broken records where I live, but definitely above my comfort level. You know, when it's this hot, I definitely, if I have errands to run, appointments to go to, I definitely do them or make the appointments for first thing in the morning or late in the afternoon or evening even, because I think it's already getting to be, I think it's like 9 or 9:30 before the sun sets. So I definitely prefer to do that in the morning because I'm turning into an old lady and I like to be in my pajamas by 8 or 8:30. And I'm not ashamed to say that. So yeah, I definitely am not a fan of going out when it's hot like that. So yeah, there's even the events are ramping up for the year. I think there was a couple things going on this weekend, but yeah, I'm not in any mood to go frying in the heat just to see a festival or whatever. I can't do that if I don't have to. Like last year I had to do it when I was on my housing search, my very quick last minute housing search. When I was moving out here, I came and there was a heat wave and I had no choice but to go out in the heat and sizzle every day. But that was an emergency. Otherwise, if it's not an emergency, forget it. I hate the heat, and that's that. I remember my first heat wave in Ontario. I think I was still in elementary school, and people were actually, it was on the news. It was a big deal because people were able to, in Ontario, other parts of the world, like I said, it's normal, but in Ontario, people were able to actually crack an egg and fry the egg on the sidewalk or in your driveway or on top of your car. And I just thought it was so amazing, but I didn't fry the egg because my mother would have killed me for wasting an egg. And but yeah, I remember going outside in this heat wave and just standing in that oppressive heat and being amazed at the power of it and being amazed at how quiet the streets were. There was nobody on the streets. That's how hot. People were either at the beach or in their house with their air conditioner ramped up. Like the streets were dead. Like even there weren't any birds. There was no flies buzzing. Like it was just so quiet. It was really kind of surreal, odd, weird, however you want to say it. It was just hot and silent. Oh, it was weird. But yeah, I definitely remember my first heat wave around that elementary school time. And wow, the heat can make people run. Anyway, I looked up at the sky, looked around. I was over it and I went back inside. Back then it was hot. Back then, like it was 100 years ago. Back then it was like it was hot, but it wasn't the heat plus the humidity like we have now. I don't remember when the humidity started to intensify, and so you had the heat and the humidity, but it was years ago. I probably maybe 15 years ago that the heat, it just, as long as it got to if it was above a certain temperature, the humidity just cranked up. And obviously depending how close you are to water, that made it worse. But yeah, Ontario is just a swamp now. Maybe it's always been like that. I don't know. People are older than me. I just always remember it being swampy for the most part. For most of my life being really swampy, hot, like you sweat and the sweat just sits on top of your skin and there's just like a coating of sweat on your skin. Like that kind of swampy heat is just, yeah. But anyway, and I've noticed in BC kind of goes on and off. Sometimes it's just hot and other times it's hot and humid, but at least I'm used to it. I don't like it, but at least I'm used to it. So yeah, yay BC. When the humidity rises, I hibernate even more. Cost of vegetables is still rising in Canada, which is bad news because people are already buying less produce because of the higher cost. I am included in that group of people. Causes of the higher produce cost are the drought in California and exchange rates. I'm sure there are other causes, but those are, I believe, are the two major ones. But I think that this could be remedied, or majority of it could be remedied, if we bought locally. And of course, if more food that was grown in Canada was actually kept in Canada, that would help. And I know I'm not the only one. Why are we seeing the majority of our produce coming from the US when we have an abundance of farmland and food here in Canada? Like, we have a lot of farmland, working farmland, and the most of our food is going outside of Canada instead of staying in Canada, and then we're importing food from the US, produce from the US. That makes no sense to me, you know. But I guess leaving food on the shelf is one of the only ways that many of these grocers are going to start bringing in more local food. I know it's a larger issue, but leaving food on the shelf, and then when they see that people are buying it, I think that's a start. If an item is out of my budget, I leave it in the store. I'm not paying $8 for a head of cauliflower, and I really love cauliflower. You can do a lot with cauliflower. You can eat it raw, you can eat it cooked, you can make relatively carb-free pizza crust with cauliflower. You can do a lot with cauliflower, but there it is, $8 a head. I'm not buying it though. I think another thing that would help with our produce costs, fruits and vegetables, is buying in season. And I know this sucks because it often means we can't enjoy our favorite items all year round, you know, unless you're lucky enough to live in a place that's pretty much 1 or 2 seasons, like some places in California or Nevada, or yeah, I'll just use those 2 states for an example. If you live in a 3 or 4 climate season, you're gonna have to pretty much, to keep costs down, for the most part, not always, you're gonna have to shop for, you know, what is grown in season. And farmers markets are also a great alternative to grocery stores if you can. I know a lot of places you don't have farmers markets, or they're not easily accessible. That's another way to shop in season and keep your food costs down, because you're just buying from the farmer and you're not having to pay the farmer and pay the grocer. And the grocer obviously has to pay his employees, so obviously he has to bump costs up. Anyway, I would like to know, people who are on a budget, or if you're thrifty, what do you do? Do you leave produce on the shelf, or do you buy regardless of price? Or do you switch to frozen or canned foods produce until the prices come down, or there is a sale, and then you stock up and then freeze at home, can at home? What do you do? Food is expensive, but it doesn't have to be. We as the consumers, I think we definitely have more power than we think we do. Our dollar has more power than we think it does. In medical news, blood tests detect onset of Alzheimer's. Researchers from the National Institute of Aging used blood samples from 174 patients. Of these 174 participants, 70 had Alzheimer's, 20 had diabetes, and 84 were healthy. They found that the participants who had Alzheimer's had higher amounts of the inactive form of IRS1, it's a single protein in the brain, and lower amounts of the active form than adults who were healthy. Basically, this blood test lets doctors diagnose Alzheimer's 10 years before its onset. The blood test is able to predict the onset of dementia within a year with an 87% accuracy, according to this research. And that's great news. If you know that it's coming, first of all, we have time. So time for research to get better and hopefully find a cure, and if not a cure, to halt it where it is to prevent it from coming on, or halt it in its progression. So you know, even if we can't get rid of it, because I don't know how close we are, how close the researchers are, how close science is, but if you're diagnosed with it and you can halt it with medication and therapy, and you can still live an independent life, whether it's, you know, keeping your job, or just, you know, if you're retired, just being able to live out your retirement in a healthy, you know, manner, mentally and physically, being able to enjoy your loved ones and your friends, be a participant in society and social, whatever your social activities are, that is amazing. And oh boy, I just hope that testing and research and medication gets on this, and we can figure out, now that we know for the most part what causes it, how we can diagnose who's going to get it. Treatment is just going to improve, and people's quality of life will not deteriorate with time. Cancer treatment. When do you stop treatment and make yourself comfortable? At the American Society of Clinical Oncology's annual meeting, the discussion of end-of-life treatment plans was had. The new study with patients under 65 is an analysis of health claims data involving more than 28,000 cancer patients who died between 2007 and 2014. Their end-of-life treatment included hospitalizations, chemotherapy, and invasive procedures. Fewer than 1 in 5 patients received hospice care. Fewer than 1 in 5, so 4 out of 5. That is a huge number, who were basically not kept comfortable in their last days, weeks, or months, which is what hospice care is about for the family, and definitely, of course, number one, for the patient. What are the causes? I want to know. What are the causes? What are the causes that so many people are literally having treatment, whether it's medication, combination of medication, radiation, more chemotherapy, surgery, literally until their last days? What do patients and their families want to fight with modern medicine to the end? Do patients not want to give up because their loved ones want them to continue to fight? Guilt, I believe, is a huge factor in the equation. And it's unfortunate that guilt would be part of this whole equation at such a precious and critical time, but it can, and it definitely does. Guilt on the part of the patient, guilt on the part of the family members, guilt on the part of the medical staff. Do doctors insist on using another treatment one more time, or trying a new treatment this one last time? Is there a godlike syndrome complex at play with the doctors? Or if the doctors don't do as much as they can, do they fear being sued by the family? If people knew that this was the end, how many would just say, I just want to go home or into hospice care, make me as comfortable as possible? I think that it's important to have these conversations with your loved ones before you get sick, and of course after you get sick, no matter what type of illness. No one wants to think about death and sickness plans, but when you or your loved ones are facing the end, that, in my opinion, is, the worst time. So I think you should talk about it before. Of course, plans can change once you are in the thick of an illness, but to have something in mind or even have it in writing is a great start, whether you use that plan or not. I personally have had my plans about myself in case of sickness or injury. I've had this done, hashed out, spoken with close family, and I do this at least once a year, so I know that they remember my plan, and if they can't or don't want to follow it, let me know so I can find somebody else to support me in case of accident, injury, or illness. And that's okay. Not everybody wants to talk about it. You may have to go outside of your family and find a close friend, but it should always be spoken about. It's okay if you don't want to have that conversation with somebody who is preparing their plan, but you as a person, whether you're sick now or are planning for the future, I think everybody needs to have that plan. Tragedy is hard, and not everyone can handle facing a loved one's imminent death, but that's part of life. There's a lot of nasty, horrible, yucky, weird, uncomfortable things that we have to deal with and face. And through experience, I know how I would want things to go for myself going forward. And hopefully, because going through experiences with losing a loved one from cancer, and how that plan wasn't really hashed out and everything was very last minute, I hope that I can definitely be a help to somebody in the future, and definitely a help to myself, because things can be a lot better. It's gonna suck when they die. It's horrible, but being prepared makes things go a lot smoother, so you can get on with the process of grief and life. What do you think about having a health plan if the worst happens? And health plan, not just with yourself, but actually, if you're sick, discussing it with your doctor. Would you change doctors if one doesn't want to help in that way, if they just want to keep doing treatments instead of listening to you as a patient saying enough is enough? Yeah. Health plans, death, sickness, cancer. In the end, it's always about what is best for the patient. It's not completely about you or the doctor. It's about the patient and making the end of their life journey the best that it can be. What I'm grateful for this week, that I'm over being an introvert, and not over that I want to change it. I'm over being guilty about being an introvert. I love my me time. I love alone time. Me time with no work or obligations is how I energize my spirit, whether it's reading a book, watching a show, watching a movie, going for a walk, just sitting in nature. Being in public on a daily basis is draining, and it takes a lot of energy that I personally can't afford to give up at this time, and I really don't want to. I'm good with going to an event or socializing once a month. To me, the cashier, when I do my weekly shop, is plenty of interaction, really. And I know other introverts can empathize with me. It's not you, it's just me, and I'm okay with that. Thank you for tuning in to episode 26 of My Views Extended. I would love to hear feedback and comments of what you think of this podcast and the topics that I've discussed this week. You can listen to My Views Extended at NadiaDanelle.com and YouTube, where you can subscribe, like, rate, and or leave a comment. There's also closed captioning available on YouTube, and the full transcript at NadiaDanelle.com of this episode. I will leave links in the show notes, and as more listening platforms are added or changed, I will let you know. Till next time, this is Nadia.
I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. You better believe it. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. Get that understood. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. You better believe it. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. Get that understood. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. You better believe it. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. Get that understood. I'ma be happy. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. I'ma be happy. Get that understood. Get that understood.
I'ma be alright, I'ma be okay. Any minute I'ma be stacking chips so high, so Pringle free to lazy. We don't need no architect for our marketing. I could be all up on Wall Street with Parker Monopoly making. So know if your spot is left vacant, it's gotta be taken. Anyway, boo, since we done with that prelude, let me put you up on some philosophy. Professor Hayduk would not even say to you. I like how that smile that you're making is creating the world that's around you and great to you. Did you know that? Girl, your hair's so long that you grow that. Quarterback that back, baby, throw that. Once I put some ice on your hand like I broke that. Hold that. That's the whole word in your hands, grow that. That's the same word that you made in your head when you laid in your bed waiting for me to roll that. I mean, right this psychic you are a creator, you is. Yell out your blessings and wait on your gifts. Stardust will harbor the carbon you give. So I'ma be happy cause I'ma still live.
I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. You better believe it. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. Get that understood. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. You better believe it. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. Get that understood. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. You better believe it. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. Get that understood. I'ma be happy. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. I'ma be happy. Get that understood. Get that understood.
My heart's been torn into pieces, my pride's been crushed and ego's been diminished. My life's been tossed to the floor, to the ceiling, up and down like I live on a coaster, but still I say love keeps lifting me higher and higher. So with every hit I take, I get stronger. I can go a little bit longer, make room for the infinite incident. Bounce it back, a hash attack it. Better know who you dealing with. Feeling as if I was meant for this, finish this, sure I will. Quit killing this, sure I won't. I got 4 sisters, 1 brother, 1 dad, 1 mother, whole family to feed. It's a must I blow. Must I go hard on stage and walk like God, cause good Lord knows that I ain't get to walk on graduation day. So every stage I grace, I walk like I ain't never walked before. And I speak like I done talked to God before. And I think like I done been let down before. But I smile like he done turned it around before. Like I ain't never had to frown before, and you know that.
I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. You better believe it. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. Get that understood. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. You better believe it. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. Get that understood. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. You better believe it. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. Get that understood. I'ma be happy. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. I'ma be happy. Get that understood. Get that understood.
Speak into the atmosphere. 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 Speak into
I'ma be good. You better believe it. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. Get that understood. I'ma be happy. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good. I'ma be good. I'ma be happy. I'ma be understood. That understood. I'ma be happy. I'ma be happy. I'ma be good.